What is up, everybody? Solomon here. Super excited to be with Genfinity, interviewing a multitude of builders across Web3. Here we are again. We have the Hedera Africa Hackathon, $1 million hackathon, open to everybody globally, though. Super excited today to have multiple different individuals represented across multiple entities. We've got Exponential Science Foundation, Shamba Records, we've got Evercity, Hashgraph Association, we've got DAR Blockchain. So a little bit of everybody here. I think before we get started, I want to make sure I get kind of a round robin here, 10 or 15 seconds of an intro of everybody. I'm going to start with the order I see up here. Solomon, if you could give us an intro of yourself, that'd be great.
Right. Okay. So Salman Halawi, I am the Innovation Program Manager at the Exponential Science Foundation. We are the co-founder and co-organizer of this hackathon. And looking forward to this episode.
Awesome. Thank you, Solomon. And George from Shamba Records, if you could give a quick intro of yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you so much, Solomon, and thank you for having me. So I'm George, the CEO and the founder of Shamba Records. In Shamba Records, we provide a traceability tool that's able to track data from the farm level all the way to the aggregation, all the way to the export market in Africa. That's being able to leverage blockchain to be able to provide a traceability tool. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, George. Alexi from Evercity.
Hey guys, my name is Alexei. I'm CEO and co-founder of Evercity. I've been in the sustainability space forever and since 2017 and into blockchain. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Alexei. Salah from the Hashgraph Association. Jaffer from the Hashgraph Association. Go with you first.
Yeah, so thank you, Brian, and it's always a pleasure to join your podcast. So my name is Jafar, and I'm leading the operations within the Hashgraph Association. I'm also the co-founder of DAR Blockchain, which is organizing this huge hackathon.
Awesome. Ishmael.
Guys, pleasure to always be on the pod with you, Brian. So Ismail from DAR Blockchain team. I'm the marketing lead of the Hedera Africa Hackathon.
Jafar, there's 4 tracks within this hackathon, and let me just share my screen real quick so everybody can kind of see. And obviously, this is just, we've talked about this before. It's a gigantic opportunity for builders out there across Web3. We always kind of get the big kind of hypey things that are going on across blockchain and DLT, but at the end of the day, when we talk about real world adoption, a lot of these real world companies have operation stacks or like ERP stacks or whatever they may be across multiple different industry verticals: healthcare, agriculture, supply chain, sustainability, just to name a few. But Jafar, if you could tell us, why you guys chose to have this as one of kind of the pillars and one of the tracks within this hackathon, that'd be awesome. And then we're going to get into a couple of real world examples with Evercity and Shamba here also, which we're excited about.
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, we have 4 main tracks in this hackathon. And the first one is more oriented to on-chain finance and real-world assets. I will go through like the 4 of them and maybe come back to DLT for operations. The second one is a DLT for operations. The third one is more oriented to immersive experience. It's around gaming, it's around NFT, metaverse, and also community governance. And we have the final one, which is the AI. I think this is the most attractive and trendy one. We talked, I think, a lot about this track in the previous sessions with you and also in our AMAs, either within the Hashgraph Association, DLT Science, but also within the socials of the Hedera Hacks. Today, we are dedicating this session to talk more about the DLT for operations. And I think this is one of the most important tracks for the African continent. We know that Hedera has the special focus on sustainability. We know that Hedera is providing Guardian, the asset tokenizer, and where we can put new methodologies. And we have seen many projects coming from all over the world, but more coming from the African continent. They have big interest in sustainability. Not only, we have many projects also joining for agriculture, supply chain, and healthcare. And today we invited George from Shamba Records and Alexi from Evercity to share about their experience with Hedera, about their project. It's the idea to inspire many project builders to see where they can be basically in a few months or years. We had these like we've been in discussions with many partners, and we decided to onboard Evercity, also Shamba Records. First of all, because they have this interest in the continent. They have many operations happening, but also as they are leading the way within the Hedera ecosystem. I want to give the floor to Salah to share about why this DLT for operation is important for the continent. I don't know, Salah, if you can hear me.
I think one of the things that's interesting to me is like kind of behind the scenes, you have this kind of global push for ESG. And there's like time frames where I think you see initiatives like this where it's like, okay, it would be nice to have this, but it's going to move beyond it would be nice to have this to it's mandated that you meet these different criteria from an ESG standpoint. 2025, certainly a year that sticks out, 2030, but leading all the way to 2050 with some of like the net negative carbon initiatives with some of the biggest entities in the world fall under some of these purviews. And I want to get to Alexi here with Evercity. So green debt and carbon origination platform. I guess the question I have is, can you tell us a little bit about kind of Evercity's ethos, what you guys are contributing, and how you guys are utilizing DLT to measure and verify environmental impact?
Sure, absolutely. So just maybe firstly, I want to mention that ESG is not just something that is related to fashion, whether it's trendy now or was trendy or will be trendy. This whole thing is related to our existential, threats and our survival on this planet. And the whole thing about sustainability is a whole new thinking about how we manage the Earth's resources and how we fight the ecological crisis and the climate crisis. So there is this thing called the Paris Agreement, which is legally binding and which every country has confirmed to follow, limiting their CO2 emissions to a level which is not harmful to climate and to our future. So there is an aim to limit global warming, and greenhouse gases directly contribute to the global warming, and that's why as you mentioned, corporations have their emission reduction targets, countries have their emission reduction targets. They're switching to low carbon economy here and there, like literally all around the globe, and this not only helps us save the world, but also helps to provide new jobs, helps to foster innovation and the global well-being. So this topic is especially important for Africa and other developing countries. But where does the blockchain come in, right? You might ask this. So since Paris Agreement is all about reducing emissions, you need to track them, and you need to track whether a certain action has contributed to the reduction of emissions or vice versa. And this is where the thing which is called greenwashing comes in. So some certain corporations or even countries, they might say that they're reducing emissions, but in fact they're not doing that. And this is where blockchain can provide a trusted and transparent ledger to track those emission reductions across countries, across businesses, across individual projects, and not only track them to make sure that these were permanent, these were the real emission reductions, but also there is an opportunity to reward such actions with something which is called climate finance. And it used to be a very complicated topic developed by the World Bank and all the financiers, white collars, and it's not really very comprehensive. It's not very clear what is climate finance and how to get those rewards for GHG emission reductions, while doing projects in Africa, for example, because it's a very specific type of knowledge. You need to be well educated in this thing. You need to know all the international standards, because there is no single standard on tracking those emission reductions and rewarding them. there are multiple standards, there are multiple companies, indicators that are providing those standards and evaluation methods. And that's why it's really hard for a project in Africa to understand whether they can qualify for climate financing that would help them execute their project or not, and which type of climate financing. So this is exactly what Evercity provides. We're providing an ultimate gateway to climate finance. So anyone without prior market knowledge could come to our platform, type in some information, very basic information about their project or idea, and then the platform tells them which type of climate financing they can be eligible for, and guides them through every step of this process. And this is exactly where we need blockchain and Hedera. And this is where Hedera Guardian, it's a separate framework inside Hedera, is providing tremendous value because it helps us as Evercity to track all the stages, how projects progress towards, getting climate financing, making sure that those emission reductions are permanent, additional, that they were really done, there was no miscalculation, and also track every action by every stakeholder involved in the project. And that provides the ultimate transparency, ultimate traceability, which was not there in this market before. And this, of course, brings trust of investors. We want more capital from the global north and also from other countries to flow into climate projects in Africa and other developing countries. And Hedera Guardian is exactly the tool, the framework that is helping us to deliver on our mission.
I want to ask Salman here just briefly, because I know from Exponential Science Foundation standpoint, you guys are kind of deep in the weeds with some really kind of, I guess, forward-thinking stuff from the tech standpoint. But I guess the question that I have is when it comes to like ESG and sustainability, do you almost like have to take that into account, even when you're like, trialing out like some super forward-thinking use cases and doing research and all this stuff? I would imagine it almost like has to like, maybe you don't look into it, but it almost like has to be sustainable. Like you can't use a ledger that's just like not going to meet like criteria like that the globe expects like in the next decade or so. But I would love your take on that just briefly.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's something that we all need to care about, not just as organizations, as people. And moving forward at scale, the more that we take this into account, the better of a globe we have. We have no other choice, right? And as Exponential Science, yes, we do take this matter very deeply, and we love to focus on the impact that our projects are creating. And we do take this into consideration. Sometimes we do have a lot of forward-thinking stuff, but that consideration does, at the stage of implementation, get taken into consideration very deeply. So yeah.
I want to move back to Alexi here because I know your time's limited too. And I think you brought up an interesting point, wherein I guess talking about just like anybody from any population really being able to come onto your platform and figure out if they could gain financing from the kind of, you mentioned, was it carbon financing, or what was the term that you used? Sorry.
Yeah. So we use the term climate financing, which so this just to clarify on the climate financing really quick. So climate financing is any financing, could be debt financing, equity financing, carbon financing, other derivatives, could be crypto financing, which is channeled towards the projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions and help us achieve sustainability goals and climate goals of the Paris Agreement. So this could be any project, transport, farming, forestry, energy efficiency, many other things. And it's really hard for the projects to understand whether they qualify for this type of funding and which concrete type, whether it's carbon or green bond or something else. So that's exactly what we help them to understand and to get to the point where they can get the actual funding.
So that's my question. And that's what I think is really interesting. And I always love, by the way, when I go on to like platforms or websites that intentionally abstract away. Like, it doesn't matter if it's built on or if it's built in a way that leverages distributed ledger. Like, intentionally abstracting that away from like the homepage of a website, I think is just important, because it's like you're automatically like almost confusing people sometimes, like just by saying, hey, we leverage blockchain, or hey, we leverage distributed ledger for X, Y, and Z. And it's like, why even say it? Like, just make a platform that works better for the end user, whether that be a business or whether that be somebody that's living in any country that wants to participate in climate financing. Like, can you talk a little bit maybe about why you guys chose to go in that direction, and why it's so important to make things as easy as possible?
That's a great question. I already told you guys that I've been engaged in blockchain since 2017, and that's actually an interesting story that answers your question, because back in 2017 we supported a team, actually a DAO, that came up with an idea to put carbon credits on the blockchain to enable transparency and liquidity and decentralization in this market, which is also important. And we supported this company, we invested in this company, and it enabled the world's first carbon credit transaction on the blockchain, which was like the very, very first one. It's acknowledged by all the market members. But then we went to different like forums and industry meetings to present this experience. And we had all these international standards. We had all these international stakeholders listening to us, and we presented them the power of blockchain, what it can do, but they never understood, anything. So the interfaces were so basic back in 2017 that they were like mad, because they didn't understand like a thing, and we received this feedback that, guys, I mean, if you're bringing some value to the market, right? If you're disrupting or if you're improving the current state of things, you have to be understandable, and you have to work on the interfaces. You have to be user friendly. You have to solve a real business issue, and you have to show it like immediately to your users. And that's exactly when we realized that if we want to build something on the blockchain, we need to think about solving the real issue, the business case, or someone's pain. It's like it's like any startup, right? In the Silicon Valley, you need to solve someone's pain, and then your company will develop. Same with blockchain and sustainability. So that's why we're not like pushing the blockchain topic, but rather providing value to our partners and clients. And we not only work with like private institutions or NGOs that are doing projects on the ground. We also work with service providers that are providing auditing services, for example, or monitoring services to those projects to monitor GHG emissions using drones, cameras or satellites. But we also work with governments, because governments in Africa, they have long been using the infrastructure that was not belonging to them. And because of that, most of the climate financing that went towards African countries, it actually came back to developed countries, Europe and US and all the others, just because African countries didn't have sovereign infrastructure for climate finance. I mean, registries, platforms like Evercity that can guide the projects towards the receipt of funding, MRV solutions, et cetera, et cetera. So now the narrative is changing, and African countries do want to embrace blockchain to become more independent and to develop their own infrastructure using open source tools, such as the ones that we are developing or co-developing within the collaboration with Hedera Guardian. Jafar has already mentioned the open source methodologies database. So that's a very unique project. What we did together with Hedera and some other players, we realized that those climate finance methodologies, literally, they say how to calculate your GHG emission reductions for different types of projects. So there are many formulas there are many criteria. It's really hard to understand them. So what we did is we digitized them using Hedera Guardian, and we open source them so that anyone in the world can just access those pool of methodologies and use them to calculate GHG emission reductions within their project, which would lead to receipt of climate funding. So blockchain is a great fit for climate finance. Maybe it's the best fit ever. I don't know, but to me, it's like kind of obvious. And people understand that. Market members in climate finance, UN folks with whom we collaborate as well, they understand that, they endorse that, and they're becoming digital right now using blockchain. So one last thing I want to mention here is that the leading global carbon standard, which is called Verra, has recently announced the collaboration with Hedera and Hedera Guardian on digitizing their methodologies and their whole, process. So this is work in progress, but this is a tremendous leap for the whole industry, because instead of doing everything manually and being exposed to reputational risks related to greenwashing and miscalculations of GHG emission reductions, now you will have them all on a public distributed ledger, which is carbon negative, and which provides the common good in the form of open source methodologies to the entire world. So this is amazing. This is happening now. And all the hackathon participants will be able to collaborate with Hedera and the Guardian and the open source methodologies database to build up their own solutions that would be localized to their own country needs, and maybe even help their governments to get their sovereign distributed infrastructure.
One thing that I think is interesting, and I want to move over to George here in a second. When I look at like the tracks, and like my head immediately towards like even just in your kind of overview, Alexei, not only did you tackle DLT for operations, but you tackled, everything. You tackled on-chain finance and RWAs. You tackled immersive experiences. Because the platform itself. You tackled AI and you tackled DeepIn, because you're talking about drones. I'm sure there's ways to add DeepIn aspects into that. So for me, my head automatically goes towards like these just gigantic feedback loops, where it's like if I'm building something, I'm gonna probably, if I was a developer, I would probably build the most boring real world use case ever, and then I would just try to figure out other value adds like to leverage the technology. I think sometimes in crypto, in blockchain distributed ledger, we don't zoom out and see the real world adoption and the things that are actually going to impact real world adoption. And I certainly think ESG and learning about greenwashing and the carbon, kind of the way that the carbon credits markets work globally right now, which is kind of like fragmented, broken, not being able to authenticate a lot of stuff. I think it's just going to be a total game changer for society kind of in general, like all markets, but certainly, as you mentioned, Alexei, climate finance is a huge one.
Well, absolutely. And the last thing I want to mention here is that there is tremendous potential in combining Web3 mechanics that were already proven in different Web3 projects that we all know, combining this with climate financing, because up till now, climate financing is something which connects institutional funding with the projects on the ground. But everyone, if you go to those climate conferences, everyone speaks there about bringing private investors, additional sources of capital, additional liquidity. So isn't this something that we've been discussing in the blockchain space forever? So there is tremendous potential. It has not been executed yet. So I assume that for this hackathon, this should be also a very interesting direction that I encourage the participants to think about. How can we combine traditional liquidity pools, and lending protocols and other Web3 mechanisms and carbon markets or green bonds or any sorts of sustainable projects that are reducing GHG emissions or otherwise helping to achieve the UN sustainability agenda, the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So that's tremendous potential, and that's what makes us excited as Evercity going further.
Awesome. Well, for those interested, and I know, Alexei, you've got to hop, please make sure to check out evercity.io, and it's going to be awesome to see the support through the Hedera Africa Hackathon. Again, For those that are watching, the hackathon is open to everybody globally. $1 million is a huge opportunity out there, and there are multiple tracks. In this podcast, we're mainly talking about DLT for operations, but as with anything in this space, we're kind of talking about everything because everything kind of ties in together. But DLT for operations, and go check out Evercity. And thank you, Alexi, for joining us today. It was awesome having the ability to interview you. Let's do this again for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Solomon, and thanks everyone. As Evercity, we're very happy to participate in the hackathon and help the builders to better understand sustainability markets and climate finance and guide them towards the use cases where we see the most value for the global ecosystem. Thanks again.
Yeah, no problem. I want to move over to George here real quick. And George, I mean, Shamba Records, if you could give us kind of an overview about Shamba. I know, I'll tell you, so I've had the opportunity over the past handful of months to interview like PricewaterhouseCoopers and Deloitte and Boston Consulting Group and some of kind of the bigger entities out there that do kind of either advisory services or, you know, straight up technical integrations. And one of the things that I keep hearing over and over again for real world adoption is like product track and trace and supply chain as kind of being one of those things that is 1,000% happening kind of behind the scenes. But I would love if you could tell us a little bit about Shamba, what you guys are building, what your ethos is, and how you're leveraging DLT as well. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Solomon, for having me, and thank you also for having Shamba Records. So basically, as Shamba Records, what you're doing, we're bridging the 300 billion digital gap in Africa's agricultural market. And we're doing this by providing a blockchain-powered traceability tool that's able to track data from the production level of the farmer up to where the goods are aggregated, all the way to the export market. And when we do that, we're able now to automate and unlock a number of key essential services of the farmers. We're able to provide a scoring engine that's able to score these farmers and link them now to the different credit. Besides that, we're able to provide them with a payment or with a wallet that's able to cut down a 90-day payment delay to just a single minute. And lastly, we're able now to provide what you call market linkages. And just to give you a bit of a context, in the agriculture sector or in the food industry, that's what we prefer to call it. Most of the production that's done here in Africa, it's not normally consumed here. For example, you find like a coffee, 90%, it's for the export market. Tea, the horticulture industry, the flowers, everything, most of it. So Africa is just like it's like a factory. So, but we're like a food factory, and you find most of our produce ends up in the global market. But there's a big challenge right now. For example, last year, I think Africa lost about $12 billion in terms of exports. And the reason why is because most of the African food, or maybe the agricultural produce that was exported, didn't meet the compliance standards. And the reason why they didn't meet compliance standards because they're not aware of how they need to be able to match the compliance or the different standards.
Oh, wow.
And that's what and that's why we have tools like Shamba Records, just being able to help now exporters, help even farmers. And what we do, we're able to work backwards. Before now, let's say, for example, if we're exporting to Europe, and Europe has this EUDR, let's say, regulation, the EU Deforestation Act, whereby every good that exported in maybe in Europe, you have to verify it's from a sustainable area. But how do you do the actual verification? You must have a tool that's able to enforce that trust. And that's why we're able now to use blockchain, because blockchain is able now to offer trust and offer transparency. And going back to the farmers, what we're able to do as Shamba Records, we're able to educate and advise these farmers. These are the kind of inputs that you need to use, whether they're organic, and this is where you need maybe to grow your produce. And then after you grow your produce, this is how you need to store your produce, and this is how the goods are being, and this is how it's aggregated. And then upon aggregation, we're able also to measure the quality of that particular maybe produce for the from the farmers. And once we ascertain the quality is well enough, and it's ready for the export market, we're able now to help these farmers and minimize the risk of rejection. So far, we've been doing this for almost like 7 years, and we have been able to impact more than 50,000 producers, or or about 50,000 farmers. And what we've seen is like a major impact. Number one, they've been able now to increase both their incomes. They've been able to increase also their harvest or their yields, and just simply because of just being able to provide a tracking tool. It might sound like we're just tracking goods from one source to the other source, but it does many other things, because we're able to communicate maybe the compliance standards to these farmers. We're able to communicate even to the exporters, like these goods have been able to meet this quality. So Shamba Records is all about de-risking the whole agricultural value chain. Yes, it's maybe the production is happening in Africa, but the consumption is not just only happening in Africa. Yeah.
I want to ask Solomon real quick, and thank you, George. I think there's a couple different directions I want to take it, but Solomon, since I have you here, it seems to me like for those of us that have done some digging, there's a lot of different stuff that's kind of converging globally at once. So I can think of like digital document laws that have went live in the UK. I think this was like 2 years ago, and they're kind of one of the first countries, and that's kind of spreading and going to become kind of mandated. You also have like product track and trace, as George was kind of going through. You also have this kind of revolution in payments. A lot of global payment systems moving from like T+2 to T+1, and then talking about T+0. When you look at this from like Exponential Science Foundation standpoint, like maybe just give your broad thoughts on what you guys are seeing from all these different things converging at once. Like it seems like we're at a kind of a unique period of human history right now where there's just a lot happening.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. There is that convergence of tech that is driven by a lot of different technologies, really, because when you look at it from the macro standpoint, you've got AI from one side powering everything, and that's where the media's attention is. You've got blockchain on the other side, and a lot of other technologies all being put together and being leveraged. It's more of a matter of finding a way to converge these technologies. Like, for example, let's take the Web3, the Web3 model as an example. Web3, for it to reach the standards that it was really built for and the things that it was built for, it needs a lot of things. And one of those things is interoperability. And interoperability, in essence, is for all of the platforms and all of the technologies to be able to work together, really, and for everyone to be able to access that version of the Web3 that we cannot see visually anymore. And it's now Web 2.5, really, at this point, because we really failed with the first attempt. I'm talking in general as the people of Web3. We failed to get the onboarding. Yeah. And the reason that happened is because there's a lot of technologies out there that are too technical, and companies were too focused on getting the mainstream user on board to something they didn't really understand. The reason Web 2 worked so well was because it was very easy to onboard users, and it was very frictionless throughout or during its transition to lead to what we have today. So yes, there will be a big need for this convergence to happen if we're going to be transported from the layer of technology that we're currently at to a newer, more improved layer.
So I want to ask George, because my head was kind of leaning in this direction, is in the United States, like we have just over the past probably 6 months seem to have some like clarity as far as like how to utilize blockchain and distributed ledger tech. Whereas, I'm curious from your stance, like when you look at Africa, and what's the opportunity? Because I've heard like there's just a lot of excitement about innovating and utilizing the tech in ways that make sense. You guys are obviously doing it. You're not only using distributed ledger technology, but you're kind of doing this comprehensive overhaul where, farmers or whoever, exporters, don't have to wait, whatever the standard is to get paid. It's like within a minute, where historically it was X amount of time, and all the standards are in one place. Like, I just kind of look at like areas like Africa, and there's some different areas across the globe as just having this massive opportunity to outperform, the United States and some different nations like that. What, I guess, just your broad thoughts on that?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Solomon. And that's a very interesting question. And when you look at Africa, it's actually the fastest growing continent. So right now we have a population of about 1.4 billion people, and it's estimated by 2050 will be about 2.5 billion, and that's like the most youthful population. But when you look at the jobs absorption or maybe job opportunities, they're quite very scarce. So technologies such as blockchain are there to be able to create an enabling environment that can be able to open up Africa. And just quoting maybe Alexi from Evercity. So Africa in the previous years has not been able to build, let's say, trusted systems. And blockchain is here maybe to help us to be able to create a trusted system. So for example, if you use now blockchain in supply chain, especially for goods that are being exported globally, that we've been able to achieve trust, and we'll be able now to create more employment. Besides now on the supply chain, also looking at health records or maybe in the health industry. Remember, there's also a lot of maybe counterfeit medication, and there's no way to be able to verify that kind of the origin of that kind of medication. So it's not just we see like a very big opportunity to be able to use blockchain to help many industries. And then away from now these leading sectors like health and agriculture, we're also looking at cross-border payments because we have a lot of Africans migrating to different parts of the world, and normally they want to invest back at home. And when you look at the traditional kind of, let's say, payment gateways, they're very expensive. It's very hard for me even to send money to my neighboring country, because again, I have to convert that, my currency maybe to US dollar, and maybe my recipient to be able to convert maybe to their local currency. But now when you use blockchain, we're talking about instant cross-border payments. And that's where Africa stands to gain a lot, and Africa stands to have the best opportunity because, again, there are no system in place, and blockchain will be able now to, help us leapfrog or maybe do catch up, and maybe do a catch up of almost 50 years or 70 years. And the beauty about it, there's a very youthful generation, very skilled as well, and they can be able to spin up so many projects. Like, for example, in Shamba Records, everything has been done in-house. We've been able to build on Hedera. Before we started building on Hedera, we're using IBM Hyperledger all the way back in 2016. That tells you there's talent and there's opportunity. So I think 10 years from now, Africa will be sitting in a very beautiful place, and one of the enabling places will be now blockchain.
I think what's interesting too, and I'll ramp us down here in a couple seconds, guys. You're talking about what you guys are doing through Shamba Records, like all the way from kind of field to export, from farm to export. Like, we could even take this even further, because you're bringing up cross-border payments, but there's a huge opportunity in the trade finance industry too, to kind of, I don't want to say overhaul, but add the transparency necessary, support small and medium enterprises to allow them to get funding, where in the trade finance industry historically was the bigger banks and the bigger entities normally would, be able to get funding, and the other ones just wouldn't, because, organizations and entities like Shamba Records, you guys are doing the legwork of product tracking, or the, product life cycle that you can actually authenticate, as well as the compliance end for the documentation that you need. Because the biggest issue in a lot of trade finance aspects is, outside of the funding, is like what's being shipped, and I think that blockchain and distributed ledger solve that. I mean, most people in manufacturing can attest back in 2020, you wouldn't even be able to get a lead time to ship things ocean freight, where it used to be 6 weeks, they would just tell you, I can't tell you. So, but I think it's awesome. So, I mean, there's really so many different directions we could talk about. But I would love, maybe George, can you talk about real quick, and then I'll let everybody go here. What are the benefits of, working with the Hashgraph Association, what are you excited about for this hackathon with Exponential Science, Hedera Hacks, and Hashgraph Association, and why Hedera as kind of a technology that you guys are utilizing here, and what makes sense?
Yeah, thank you so much, Solomon. Yeah, and as you said, so Shamba Records, we're doing a lot, and we're able even to de-risk both the farmers, also the exporters. And there's when we de-risk them, we're able now to connect them even to the different kind of financing. And this tells you what blockchain can be able now to do and build maybe that trusted, let's say, ecosystem. So one of the reasons why we chose Hedera is look, Hedera has one of the best platforms. And again, when you look at the fees, it's near zero, you know. So for us as Shamba Records, we wanted a platform that can be able now to handle many transactions, because agriculture has so many transactions, because you're dealing with millions and millions of farmers, you're dealing with guys who are exporting. So when you look at it, we needed something that can be able now to handle a lot of transaction volume. And when you look at the transaction volume, you also have to consider the cost, the gas fees. And that's how we're able now to land at with Hedera. And besides that, on the traceability journey, we're able to use Hedera consensus service. And how we do it is every, let's say, produce or every harvest collection, it's backed up by a blockchain ID, which is able now to be able to store it on the Hedera consensus service. And then from there, when the goods are aggregated, maybe ready for export, we also know how to store them on a batch ID that's also stored also on HCS service. And that also help us to be able now to, and even anybody out there can be able now to track both forward from the source to aggregation all the way maybe to the final product, as well as to be able to track backwards from the, the final product all the way to the source. So I'll say Hedera has been one of the most, let's say, best protocols that we have used in terms of now costing, in terms of speed, in terms of low latency levels, because you're looking at real-time transactions. You're dealing with farmers, then we're dealing with businessmen. They need to receive the payments and they need to see the payments. So you have to use a protocol that can be able now to support that kind of high volume of transactions, as well as can be able now to offer maybe a verifiable platform that people can be able to verify the source of goods, as well as how the goods were well computed. So in terms of the hackathon, I think I encourage many builders just to participate in this. I think there's a lot of opportunities. There's a big price tag as well. And again, we're looking at many opportunities, what we can be able to build, as well as how we can be able now to support them, be one of the mentors, and I can be able to guide them, whether it's on the supply chain track, whether it's on agriculture, whether it's also maybe on the financing bit of it. And I think this would be one of the amazing hackathon, because this especially is very dear to me, because it's also for our continent, and just to see what kind of projects that will come out there, and we're ready to support and we're ready to engage where needed.
Awesome. Well, let me do round robin here. Maybe 30 seconds, closing thoughts. But Ismail, I'm going to go with you first here, because I know the last couple podcasts I had you talking a lot, and you didn't get to talk a lot this time. So, but any closing thoughts, what you're excited about, and huge shout out to you for helping us to put together these awesome guests today as well.
So thank you so much for hosting us again, Ryan. It's been a pleasure having George and Alexi from Evercity. They're two amazing people building the future of sustainability and DLT in Africa. So I'm going to just echo what George is saying, especially for the African participants of the hackathon. Hedera's DLT and state-of-the-art technology is here to give you the boost you need to catch up with the rest of the world. And you have a lot of use cases. Like, it's true that we are a bit underprivileged in Africa and having like this technological gap for the rest of the world. But like right now, it's also an opportunity, because there's a lot to build and there's a lot to fix. And Hedera's DLT is kind of your Swiss Army knife to get that going and to catch up and to really bring that level of advancement and that level of technology to the African continent and to multiple use cases. So thank you again, Ryan, Salman, George, and Alexi for joining us today. The hackathon is live, so please join in. This is going to be your opportunity to kickstart your company, to set up. Like your price from the hackathon is going to be more than enough to set you up, and the follow-on investment and the follow-on support that you will receive from THA, EHF, and the hackathon sponsors we won't let you down. We'll just keep supporting you until you make it. So that's pretty much it from my side, and I'll leave some closing thoughts to George and Salman.
Yeah, Salman, if you want to give us any closing thoughts, forward-looking statements, what you're excited about, that'd be great.
All right, so thanks a lot for having us, Ryan, and big kudos to Ismail, really, for what he's been putting together as well. George, I really enjoyed the conversation. For everyone watching us, for everyone tuned in, really, what I would like to say is this is the opportunity of a lifetime in order to be part of the future, in order to build and become really one of the builders for the future. And Hedera is one of the best ecosystems to do that. With the prize pool money that we've got, with the support that you will be having, and with the flexibility that the tracks offer, really, the sky is the limit. And yeah, we just look forward to having you. We look forward to seeing your projects, and we look forward to seeing you prosper. Thank you.
Thank you, Salman. That was awesome. George, I'll let you close us out here. And thank you for joining today. Don't be a stranger. I would love to come on and do like a, if you ever want to do like a unique interview or something, feel free to reach out. I would love to do one. But go ahead. Closing thoughts of what you're excited about.
Awesome. I'm so sure we can connect after this. Yes, as Ishmael and Salman, I think it was great having you guys as well. Very interesting topic. And so what I can say is it's encouraged the builders, especially from Africa, to be able to participate. As you can see, as Shamba Records, we've been able to build on Hedera, and Hedera has been very instrumental in our growth. So that means there's a lot of support that comes from this, not just participating just for the hackathon, but also for the future follow-on and support. But if you need any kind of support, you can also check us on Shamba Records. Just reach us on our socials and even on my website. And looking forward to the projects that will be coming out of this. But again, thank you guys for having me and for having Shamba.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining today, and thank you to the guests that left earlier. And yeah, hang out with me here for a second, guys, to make sure I get these recordings, and we'll see you guys next time.